Beep boop. Hey guys, how are you? I apologize for being absent for like a week. I have been kind of sick and kind of busy. The busyness is not a good enough excuse, but the sick kind of is. So, I have been. I've gotten so much done on thesis stuff. I've gotten so much done in life. I collaborated with two Belgians, my wife, and my wife's good friend who is a sound engineer to make a video game. It's pretty cool. It's called Kilroy. It has a first generation build, which is just okay. It is VR and computer. So that's pretty cool. But today I'm going to be talking about cultural things that people don't notice. And I'm very, very lucky. Excuse me. Very lucky on this one because I have been a part of so many cultures that it's made me very self-aware. When I was a kid, I was raised by lesbians. I think I told you guys that before. And the culture for lesbians is different than other cultures. It is very different from other cultures. It is matriarchal. Clearly, they're women. But it also is kind of a venerating older people kind of thing. It is pretty monogamous for the most part. Most lesbians aren't quite terribly, at least once they're not young, are not terribly promiscuous. Or at least this is my experience at the time. And at the time there was a huge difference between lesbian culture and gay culture. Gay men culture. They hung out together. I grew up around both, but lesbians were very, very different than gay people back then, than gay men. So because of that, I picked up weird little things from both. That are culturally defining for both, and so I sent out a lot of mixed signals. So much so that I would be at gay bars, and if I wasn't talking, lesbians would try to pick me up because I used to be pretty androgynous. Anyway, this is not a story about gay people. It's about aspects of culture you don't think about. So, in American culture, in American business culture, you generally have two kinds of bosses. You have administrative bosses who like to hand off most of the work to other people and just kind of make stuff happen. And executive bosses who tend to not be able to hand stuff off to subordinates and try to do everything themselves. Depending on what kind of boss you have, you would want to be a different kind of subordinate. So like administrative bosses, they have executive workers. And executive bosses need people who are willing to sneak around and take care of stuff before it becomes a problem. When I came to Sweden, I did not know how to react to their culture. Because one of the largest differences between American culture and Swedish culture is American culture is all about what you're willing to do. What you're willing to do for free, what you're willing to do above and beyond. How you differentiate yourself from the pack because you are easily replaceable. Because there's always people who want this job. And so most of the retail and sales culture that I knew was very, very on demand. What are you willing to do? How are you willing to make yourself worthwhile to this company? And so having attention, even negative attention, is good. And, even if you seem like you're asking too many questions, that means you care over there. Over here, that's not the case. In Sweden, asking too many questions means, why can't we just trust you to handle this? Why can't you just do this and not bother us? And if we find out you're doing something horribly wrong later, then we'll be upset about it. But it's not nearly as frantic. It's not nearly as exceptionalism. It's not you're not trying to distinguish yourself from others. You're trying to be part of a group. And that difference between communalism and just bald capitalism is huge. And it contributes to the culture over here of the lack of urgency. I've talked about this before, where Sweden just doesn't seem like it's in a super hurry to get anything done, to get work done, to get school done, to get places. There's very little urgency in trying to get anything done, because as long as it gets done, it doesn't need to be done right now or as fast as you can. And I'm sure that's not entirely true with certain other jobs. I'm sure construction still has schedules to keep, and most jobs you need to be there on time. But it's one of those things where, if something goes wrong, in the US you can be immediately fired even if it's not remotely your fault. And yeah, you can fight it, but in most places, they'll just make excuses. Over here it's not like that. So it's one of those things where the culture is a lot healthier here, but it can be a little exhausting too. Because, for example, in schools, most kids in the U.S., there comes a point where when they ask too many questions, you can just say, because I said so. And that's true with parenting too. Over here, it's not, that's frowned upon. You want to be able to answer the why. And as long as the kid is not just doing it to be a jackass, and sometimes even when the kid's just doing it to be a jackass, you still want to answer those questions. And I make an extreme effort, an extreme effort to be fair, because it's really, really easy as a teacher to not be fair. It's really, really easy to be nicer to some kids than others. And there are some kids that require significantly more patience. There are some kids that need significantly more patience. But for the most part, because we don't put gifted kids in gifted classes over here, the kids who need more patience fall on either side of the spectrum. You're going to have kids who need a lot more help. And then you're going to have kids who just don't need any help, and so you have to be patient because they're bored. So it's and part of that is the culture. Like I said, the culture is in the US, because of exceptionalism, we're always trying to make the best better, and we're not so worried about the worst. Over here, we want to keep everybody kind of in a group, which means that the best aren't as good as they could be, but the worst are not left behind. And that's cool. It works out pretty well. There are just a lot of things that are little cultural things that people just don't think about. One of the things that made me kind of weird in the US is I had a bunch of friends who were not from the US. And so I got to where, and this made me weird, in the US we laugh when we're uncomfortable. And I had kind of trained myself to stop doing that, because a lot of my friends who were not from the US would go, "Why are you laughing?" And I'd be like, "Hey, God, I don't know why shouldn't I be laughing?" And they got to where I don't laugh unless I'm surprised anymore. And I don't laugh unless something surprises me or is so funny that I just can't. So I smile a lot. And that's much more normal over here. But in the US, that was considered kind of weird that I didn't laugh when I was uncomfortable. And so, it used to be a thing. Lots of my students just thought I didn't laugh. But no, over here, every now and then, and it's gotten to where I because I'm self-aware about this, there's a couple of students who were like, "Oh my God, we made you laugh." And I'm like, "Yeah, very good." And, there's certain things that always make me laugh. But for the most part, no, I don't laugh that much, because I only laugh when something is funny. And not just like, funny, but like actually funny. So it's just one of those things where different cultures are different ways. And we don't think about the fact that other people might be different than our culture, especially when we've never been outside of our culture. So it's just one of those things. Anyway, I hope that will make up for the fact that I haven't done a video in like a week or so. And I hope that this was interesting for some of you. And I have to go because I'm going to go get ready to have my first meeting with a new Swedish tutor who will have, hopefully, he gave me so much of a lesson plan that I'm kind of super excited to just work my way through it. But he's also going to be meeting me over Skype. So wish me luck. Hope you are all well. Happy May. We're in May now. And that's very exciting. Beep boop.